Hey guys, I'm back for another tutorial. In this one we're going to do a couple things. I changed it up a little bit. First, want to apologize real quick for the cutout in audio in the first tutorial. Somehow my mic got muted. Rather unfortunate, but it's a very straightforward tutorial, so I don't think anyone should have any problems following along with what I did. So at this point, what we're going to do is we are going to do a couple things a little bit different. First of all, I said in the previous tutorial that we're going to use ZBrush for this part, and I decided against that because of some issues that were coming up while trying to do it, so I'm going to do it a little bit differently in just 3ds Max. And the other thing I was going to do is I was going to re-export this. I exported it as an OBJ, and I did not want to do that. I actually wanted to export this as a xNormal SBM. So I'm going to head back to my exports, destruction series, fractured based, 3ds Max exports. I'm going to call this, let's see, alright, so I'm going to call it, actually hold on, first we need to apply a projection modifier. That's what I'm forgetting. And the reason why is because we want all of that beautiful detail that we made in the last tutorial. Let's go to cage. We want to increase the amount a bit. Maybe by, let's try about that. I don't think they'll give us too bad distortion, and I think that will get everything. So let's go ahead and export. Gosh dang it. Why can't it just save? I'm not a huge fan of the export and import system for 3ds Max, I can tell you that. Destruction series, fractured based, 3ds Max exports. Let's go to OBJ and SBM. So save, overwrite. What we're going to do, it's not right. Export selected, 3ds Max exports. OBJ, LP. Oh, I see what went wrong. Change it to SBM. Then we gotta get rid of that subtext. Save. Okay, here we go. This is the low definition mesh. So, with the xNormal SBM exporter, which can be found in your install directory for xNormal, you can export UVs, tangent bases, and you can, the most important thing is it exports the cage. So let's go and export this. Alright, so that's pretty much, we don't need this right now. We can get rid of the cage. We don't need that. Go ahead and come back. Let's add a high definition mesh, which can be found in our ZBrush exports. And let's go ahead and select HP. Let's grab our low definition mesh, 3ds Max exports, and let's bring in the xNormal SBM. We're going to change this to fractured based, texturing, xNormal. Let's call this pillar inside. We are going to leave it for ambient occlusion in normal map, and I have I have an NVIDIA graphics card, so I'm going to use the CUDA renderer, which works way faster. Now we're going to click this little ray distance calculator, which calculates the distance between each face and each face of the low poly and each face of the high poly, to calculate distance in order to bake out a correct ambient occlusion and normal map. So we are going to let this go, and I'm going to cut this. I'll be back in just a moment. Alright, I am back, and it's gone for about, as you can see, 100 seconds or so. I'm going to go ahead and stop it. I'm going to copy the results. What that does is it goes to the, I believe, the high definition mesh, no, low definition mesh, and copies these values, the maximum frontal ray distance and the maximum rear ray distance. So let's then go to back to baking options, make sure this is all right. Cavity maps are not supported by CUDA yet, so I'm not going to do a cavity map. It wouldn't hurt for this one, but I'm not going to worry about it. So that's all where I wanted to bake out to. So I'm going to go ahead and generate the maps, and this should just take a second here. Yep, looks like our normal map is good. Don't have any real errors I can see. The ambient occlusion looks good. Map's finished. Alright, so that's all we need this for right now. We are going to now hop into Photoshop, and let's do a new document. Let's call it pillar inside _D for diffuse. Let's save this. Base concrete, where are we? Yeah, this is where Photoshop pillar inside D. That's exactly what we want. Come over to here to the base concrete, click on final D. Let's go ahead and just bring it over and plop it here into our document. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to pull this up real quick. I'm just going to go grab our texture because this is faster than just drag these in. There we go. Perfect. Now I'm just going to do some renaming. D. Yo. And I like keeping the name simple. Let's rasterize both these. Go ahead and get rid of the background layer. Alright, now I'm going to create a new group. Let's call this D. And bring these in here. Let's go ahead and get rid of that normal for now. I'm going to set this to multiply. Or not. Yeah, there we go. Multiply. Let's just scroll through the options. Like multiply so far. Maybe color burn. That's interesting. I didn't expect color burn to work as well as I think it does. I think I might just use color burn. I kind of like that. Okay. Photoshop was acting weird there. Alright, so we have our diffuse, and we have our normal. It's not really necessary, but I think I might just whip up a quick spec. Let's just call this S, enter, bring that up to the top, and let's Control U. Bring down the saturation a tad bit. I like keeping some color information, sometimes depending on what I'm doing. Control L. Let's actually let's go the other way. I want very low specularity and pretty even specular tones. Don't want it to be burnt though. It's looking a bit too burnt. I think that's pretty good. Alright, now I'm going to save this as the great thing about UDK is you can just bring in the PSD files. You don't need a specific file format. I haven't found a particular file format to take up a whole lot more space or be any less qualified for UDK. So let's go ahead and save that as specular, and let's go ahead and hide that. Let's bring in our normal map. So let's call this N. And then we are going to have to save over our diffuse because it was saved as like a normal map or something. So now we have all our textures. Easy peasy. So now I think what we're going to do is we are going to let's go into UDK to make sure this looks right. Then let's head over and make our outside mesh. While UDK is booting up, I'm going to take a quick drink of water. Alright, well, UDK is taking a moment, so I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to come back once UDK is up and running, and I have a little scene put together that we can do this in. Alright, so I created a little hierarchy for us to import stuff, and I made a new map with midday, or not midday, late afternoon lighting. So let's go ahead and head into 3ds Max. We need to export this. Export selected as a FBX file. Actually, first thing we should do, this is something that we need to do, is we need to add another UVW unwrap modifier. What we're going to do is we are going to change the map channel to 2. Abandon this one. We're gonna save the UVs as inside pillar underscore UVW. Then here we changed it to channel 2. We're going to load that UV coordinate. What this does is it allows us to save our light map data. So that looks good. So now we can export this as an FBX. And this is the right place. Autodesk FBX. Pillar inside. Keep on thinking of things too late. One thing we should check is that our pivot is in a good, yeah, that's a good place. That's a good place for a pivot. Alright, so now we're good. So probably just type this in. See if that'll work. Yep, sure enough. Don't need animation, want smoothing groups. Don't really need to triangulate, but it's okay. Alright, I think that's good. So now we have that exported properly. We have all our texture files, so we can come into UDK. Let's go and import scenes. Actually, let's just go here. 3ds Max exports inside pillar. Static mesh. Don't want this stuff. Okay. Now time to bring in the textures. Import texturing Photoshop. We want pillar inside D through S. Open. This is the diffuse, so we're going to leave that at default. This is the normal, so what we want is normal map for compression settings. LOD group will be normal, and so maps work correctly. Okay. Then this, we want world specular. We're going to change this to... We actually have color information in there, so we want to leave it as default. And... okay. Perfect. Now we need to create a new material. Let's call this pillar inside underscore MAT. There we go. Textures. Go and drag these in. Unfortunately, you cannot do all three at the same time, which I don't really understand, but not a big deal. Let's go ahead and apply that mesh, so we have the mesh in here. The scale's obviously quite a bit off, but since we're not making an entire scene, should just be able to scale it up just fine. As long as we keep the scale between the inside and the outside the same. Normal. There we go. We have a nice little chunked up pillar. If you hold the L key, you can rotate the light around. Might be a little bit light for my taste, so what we can do is we can bring in a multiply node and a constant 1 vector, and we can actually should be able to multiply this by maybe 0.5. Let's see what 1, 2. So let's go with 0.8, maybe 0.7. I think that looks pretty good. Specular's a bit looks a bit wet. Let's bring in another constant 1 vector. Specular power. That's really high, as you can see, so let's go to about 15 maybe. It's still a bit high, maybe 30. Tighten that up even more. Still looks kind of wet, but I guess I can just leave it. Go ahead and save that. Let's go ahead and apply the material. There we go. Go ahead and save that thumbnail. That's odd. Let's see what it looks like in the real world. Looks a bit yellow, but alright, well, it's working. That's what's important. So, at this point, we're pretty much done in UDK for now that we checked to make sure our mesh was looking good. I'm gonna save, Alt-Tab to 3ds Max. This is where this tutorial really takes off. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create the outside pillar. This one's kind of interesting, so let's go ahead and create a standard primitive box. So let's go ahead and turn on the snaps. You know, I just realized something. I have snap to vertex on. There we go. Okay, that's up there. We need to make sure this encompasses the entire mesh. Let's go and convert this to an editable poly. Hit 4 on our keyboard to go to face selection. Go and bring this up. Go and bring this over. Bring that over. Bring this over. And bring this over a little bit. Now this is where you guys will start to see where the magic happens. So let's go and let's see, we're in perspective. We're gonna need to see inside this thing, so let's make sure, double check. Okay, so we might want to extend this down. There we go. Now is the fun part. I can't recall which one I need selected. I think I need this one, the outside selected. So let's go ahead and go to Create, Compound, Boolean, and now we're gonna pick operand B, and this is just to subtract one mesh from another. Yep. And okay. So now let's go ahead and see what we have. So I move this over. Whoopsie. So it actually got rid of our mesh. It's really hard to see, but basically we use that mesh to subtract from this mesh. So it's almost an exact inversion of that other piece of geometry. And now what we're going to do is we're going to create a we're going to slap a unwrap on. Actually, we're going to convert this to a editable poly. Make sure it's still in here. Yep. Alright. Now we're going to unwrap this. This is where things get challenging. What I might do is I might just try an automatic unwrap, because trying to get in here, actually it looks kind of decent. At least decent enough. But yeah, this is where things get a bit ridiculous in terms of trying to get this to unwrap correctly to display the materials. Luckily, we're using a tiling material, so it wouldn't be too hard to adjust in terms of changing the U and V coordinates. Let's go and see what's going on here. Oh, that is perfect. Almost perfect. It looks like we have something over here. Yeah, let's see. So these sides have not been put on correctly, but this actually retains the same UV unwrap. That is amazing. That it retains the same UV unwrap as the original mesh. I actually did not know that would happen. I'm actually very, very pleased about that. Just keep on doing this. Don't normalize because it will distort the texture. Unless you don't care, because I mean we're using a tileable texture here. It's not that big of a deal. But I like keeping my UV unwraps clean. Okay, let's go ahead and kind of arrange this decently. And this final bit, or almost final bit. Go ahead and align these. You can click and then hold Control to uniformly scale. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we can actually shrink this, because this is a lot less important than the outside of our mesh. So let's go ahead and bring these over. Shrink that down. We're also using light maps with this. We're going to want to keep the UVs fairly separate. That's decent. Let's go ahead and save the UVs, that way we don't lose them. Let's call this outside pillar. And we are done UV unwrapping. So this is essentially our final product in terms of the outside mesh and the inside mesh. The rest is pretty straightforward. In fact, this is a relatively straightforward tutorial. I haven't quite made that connection, but this really isn't. It isn't too hard. Did it again. We need a second UV unwrap modifier. Set this to channel 2. Abandon. Let's go and open UV editor. It looks like that actually retained it. It did. Alright, so at this point we have our two UV coordinates. So we can export this. Export. Let's go ahead and Autodesk FBX. Outside pillar. Yeah, outside pillar FBX. Save. It's going to triangulate, which is fine. All that's good. Okay. Now let's go into UDK. I believe, yes, we're not going to bake out an AO map or anything. Let's go ahead and bring in the model. Import fracture based Reneas Max exports outside pillar. That should be okay. Now let's go ahead and delete our mesh. Let's go into top view. Hopefully, I guess it should be fine. Let's go ahead and turn on grid snapping. Oh yeah, it's already on. So when we bring this in, when we add static mesh, and when we click this, it should bring it in the exact same place. Add static mesh. Maybe. Yes. Perspective view. Oh, I see what happened. Perfecto. Now, I'm probably gonna just pull this up one, then we can scale this. So it's scaled uniformly. Bring them both over. Bring them down. Bring this one down. Alright. That's our outside pillar. Actually, that might be a bit too big. Something maybe like that. Alright, let's delete that. Save. Let's go ahead and play from here. That's pretty good size. Alright, so we have both meshes in. We have our one mesh textured and has material on it. It's looking great. The last thing that we have to do is we need to texture this, get a material on it, make sure to have the material show up where it breaks, and basically fracture it, and then we're pretty much in the clear, guys. So that will be in the next tutorial. Don't forget to save. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I hope you guys are enjoying these tutorials. See you guys in the next one.